1917, Kingsman, Kick-Ass, Zero Dark 30, just to name a few, Ali.
Absolutely fantastic, and he shared the screen with legends of cinema, including Leonardo DiCaprio, who's in Glasgow, by the way. Did you know that?
I did not.
Yes, Leonardo DiCaprio's in Glasgow.
I'll be up there shortly.
Honestly, it is brilliant. It's incredible. Things you wouldn't think you'd be saying in talkSPORT this morning. Leonardo DiCaprio's in Glasgow, Robert Downey Jr., Colin Firth, and many, many more. And I'm absolutely delighted to say that actor and Arsenal fan Mark Strong joins us in the studio now to discuss the second season of Tempo. Mark, a very, very good morning. The first question I've got for you, Mark, is a plain and simple one. I was in the studio Monday and Tuesday. Did you just wait till I was away before you decided to come into the studio?
No, of course not. I mean, this has been planned for ages. I'm really sorry that you're not here, but it's lovely to hear your voice.
Great to speak to you, mate. Are you busy?
Yeah, but I've just been in Glasgow. I just got back from Glasgow.
What was on, my friend?
I was making a speech at COP26 about sustainability and drama. You know, how we can, because we're in people's living rooms and hearts and minds, and there's a way actually of helping people understand the issues subtly and subliminally using drama. So I was making a speech about that.
Good for you. Well, as you can imagine, I mean, the whole place has been taken over up here, Glasgow. It's just gone absolutely crazy with COP26. Yeah. So good on you. And I was deadly serious. Leonardo DiCaprio, I think he arrived in Glasgow either yesterday or the day before.
No, I just found that out last night because I'd done my speech and I went to a Sky drinks thing and I was just saying bye to everyone, and then somebody said they were going on to a dinner and that Leonardo DiCaprio was there.
Really?
Brilliant.
Yeah. I thought, why aren't I there?
Exactly.
That's all right.
How busy have you been at the moment? And tell us what's going on.
I've been busy just sort of getting Temple out there because obviously season 1 was a big success. They let us make a second one, and it's all our own work. The first one was based on an original Norwegian show, so we're very proud of this one.
Now, you and your wife are executive producers on this, right?
Yeah.
Amazing. How's that working with the other half?
Just keeping it in the family. You know, and, no, but she makes film and TV, and I obviously act in stuff, and we just decided we should do something together, and this came up, and we thought it was a good idea.
That's absolutely remarkable because my wife and I struggled to go to the shopping together. Never mind work together, man. So all credit to the two of you.
What happens in the process where you've had one series and you must have obviously known at the time it was going down well and people were enjoying it and watching it. How long does it take for them to say, right, second series commissioned, and what's the process like?
It takes ages. I mean, obviously it relies on the numbers. You have to have people watching, so you have to be sure that there's an audience for it, but we got that and we know that people really like it. Our difficulty was that we were due to go in April last year, just after lockdown happened. Lockdown happened in March. We were all set, ready to go. Everybody was hired. The sets were all built. And then the whole thing just collapsed. So we were one of the first shows that went back in August. And that had the whole added extra protocols element of masks and sanitizer and all of that. And we had to shoot the thing using all of that. So it made it doubly complicated.
Does it affect the production? You know, were there things that you wanted to do in it that you then couldn't because everything was slightly more restricted? Yeah,
I mean, hiring people became difficult because if they tested positive, we obviously couldn't have them on set. That's a given. But it made things easier, conversely, because a lot of the buildings you normally can't get into, we were able to access because they were empty. So one building that normally has 1,500 people working in it only had about 50. So we could shoot on a floor where there was nobody. We shot in Soho at night, which is almost impossible. We shot in Piccadilly Circus, which you can never do, because it was all empty.
That's actually great.
I was going to ask you, Mark, if I may, in terms of, you talk about the evolution and changes and everything, and it's remarkable what's been happening, but in terms of your own profession, I'm talking about things like, for example, Netflix and the accessibility for shows and programmes and movies is quite incredible now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just been an explosion, hasn't there, with the streaming services like Netflix and Amazon Prime, and also the fact that lockdown happened and meant that we all ended up in front of our TVs watching shows, you know? I can't remember, I watched that one about the tigers. Do you remember that one?
Oh, Tiger King.
Tiger King.
I think there's a second one coming out.
Is there?
And I think Carol Baskin is really unhappy about it. I haven't looked into it into too much detail. It sounds like I have, doesn't it? But I think she's she might even be suing. I don't know what it's about, so God knows. But yeah, I watched that as well. And the one about cats that I can't say on air because there's a rude word in it. But no, you're right. We were all glued to it, weren't we?
Exactly. So that suddenly got us all used to watching our screens. And then now, obviously, with like Squid Games that has come out on Netflix, that's been watched by 180 million people worldwide.
Bizarre.
You know?
Is it true that now, in terms of what Hollywood production used to be like versus something like Netflix or Amazon, now all the money in production and the real high-end stuff is going into those kind of streaming services and what they can produce.
Oh my God, they're really competing. Yeah, they're spending hundreds of millions on films, and they're spending sort of tens of millions on episodes of things. They're buying up studios. I think Shepperton has been bought up by one of the streamers. Yeah, and they're basically, they're in the driving seat because they've got subscribers, and each of those subscribers is paying money. They've got a huge fund with which to make all these shows. The irony, of course, is you don't need to know how many people watch anymore, because it's all about subscription rather than viewing figures. So they're making huge shows for lots of money.
Mark, I want to ask you about an article that I read, because we mentioned the people that you've shared a screen with, but also people that you've shared a flat with. So Daniel Craig was your flatmate once, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And the article that I read was, a lot of people will know you so well for being a brilliant villain in lots of different things. And you actually auditioned to be a Bond villain, didn't you, before Daniel Craig was actually Bond? What happened?
Yeah, it all went horribly wrong. I was hoping you weren't going to bring up that story.
It was going to be number one question.
Yeah, we did a show together called Our Friends in the North in the sort of mid-90s, and then after it we shared a flat, so we lived together for a while, and we were just a couple of actors going up for jobs, and one of mine was to go up for a Bond villain. This was way before Daniel was Bond, and to celebrate, I'd done all the work, I learnt the lines, we went out for a drink the night before, and I kind of overdid it, unfortunately, and by the time I got to the audition I was so badly hungover, I just completely ruined it. I stood in there, I didn't realise there'd be 8 to 10 people, I think there were 10 people sitting behind a desk, and I just tried the lines, couldn't remember them, tried again, couldn't remember again. They offered me the script, which is, too embarrassing. I went, no, I can do it, and then I couldn't, and then they went, just sit down.
Sure. I mean this is a compliment, man, but surely you're too sensible and normal to play a Bond villain. You've got to be Jaws or Blofeld or one of these characters, Odd Job, you know what I mean?
Well, I played loads of villains, and I think the Bond villain is like, it's a real cachet, it's a part to play,
Absolutely.
And every good hero needs a good villain. So sometimes
Robert Carlyle played one as well, if I recall. Robert.
He did, didn't
Brilliant.
he? Absolutely.
Yes.
I wanted to ask as well, is it true that you injured George Clooney's back in a scene?
I did.
And what happened?
Yeah, I did. Well, it wasn't my fault. I was due to beat him up in this show, and he was tied to a chair, and he wanted to do a shot where he fell into shot sideways on the chair, and he did it and was in control of it, but then apparently he did his back in, he had to have an operation and all this kind of stuff, and I for years felt guilty, but I bumped into him a few years ago and said, I'm so sorry about that, and he said, no, it wasn't you, it was me. So
You bumped into him again.
It was
You didn't hurt him this time.
I knocked him off his stool.
Yeah. In terms of as an actor, how good is it to play villains? Because I read another thing about you that you like that villains now not just being a baddie, but having the story and the listeners or the viewers understanding exactly what makes them bad, makes it easier or better for you to play.
Well, villains if they're complicated, are really good. If they're just sort of two-dimensional, they're a bit boring, right? So often now, like Shazam, I did a film called Shazam, in which you got the kid's perspective. So me as a young boy growing up, why he turns into this incredible evil mastermind that he does, and that always just makes it a little bit more interesting. And I think often, American villains, they want to be the hero in America. They want to, throw a punch, kiss the girl, crack a smile. Whereas we grow up with Macbeth and Richard III. We don't mind villains, because they're complicated and interesting. And so I've just sort of, I don't know why they've come my way, but because in my daily home life, obviously, I'm a very nice guy. Yeah.
We don't believe you.
Who's your favourite actor you worked with alongside?
I'd have to say DiCaprio. I did a film called Body of Lies with him, and he was
what a film.
Incredibly normal for the fact that he's world famous and incredibly wealthy. He seemed really normal. Downey Jr. and Sherlock, he was really lovely as well, and George Clooney, just we sat and had a cup of tea and a chat. That's the wonderful thing about filming, is you get a lot of downtime while they're setting cameras and lights up, and you can just sit and shoot the breeze because you're spending time with somebody.
It's easier, Mark, to work with people that you got on with, because the reason I'm asking that, coming from a kind of football environment, football background, not everybody gets on really, really well in the dressing room, but you do it, for the sake of the team, effectively. Yeah. Is it much like that in acting? You'll clearly get on with people you better than some others.
It can be. It can be like that. I mean, generally, I know actors often get a bad reputation. Pretty much every actor I've ever met is a decent. They're lovely people. But ego can take over sometimes. So you can find yourself on set with someone with a terrible ego. And the worst stories I've heard are like, when you're shooting and you're doing, the camera's pointing at you and you're doing your side, that the person you're acting with isn't there. They get someone else to stand in with the script. You know,
Yep.
that can happen sometimes, and then it doesn't always make for a happy set.
A little bit of a lack of respect there, is that?
A little bit, yeah.
I always wonder that when you've got like an adult actor and a kid, and there's bad words or something like that between them, and you think that can't be, the kid can't actually be sitting there listening to that band language, surely.
But in Kick-Ass, I had to beat up a 12-year-old girl. There was a girl called Chloe Moretz. She's an adult now and a very fine actress, but at the time she was 12. And Matthew Vaughan, the director of Kick-Ass, decided we would have this literal fight to the death.
Yeah.
And honestly, I had to throw her around, and she was punching me in the face and all of this. And she's only 12. And then I had to go home and sit and make tea for the kids.
I've got one of them in the house.
Mark, I've got to say as well, because you're in good company, you're an Arsenal fan.
Yeah.
Obviously, the world knows I'm an Arsenal fan. Gab's got a bit of a soft spot for Arsenal as well.
Don't tell anyone.
It's a bit. No, it's all right. No one's listening. It's fine. It's a bit of a better time to be an Arsenal fan right now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just things. The wheel has turned a bit, hasn't it? I mean, I've always got my fingers crossed because it's always so delicate. You never quite know what's going to happen with the next game. But I think beating Leicester was
it's a big statement, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that equaliser at Palace was really important. It seems in retrospect, especially as they went on to beat City. So they're a decent team. I think, we've got some good players. The team seems to be all on the same side. They seem to like Arteta. He seems to be kind of doing a good thing with them. And, let's just hang in there.
Just bad news that the old noisy neighbours have got themselves a world-class manager now in Conte, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're trying to play that one down a little bit. Tell us as well, because obviously the new series of Temple is going to come out and there'll be people listening, and not that we want to give anything away, but is anything that you can tell us about the new show?
Yeah, I mean, season 1 was about a guy trying to keep his... It sounds bonkers now that I say it, but to keep his dying wife alive in the tunnels underneath Temple Tube Station. She wakes up. It's not a spoiler because the season's out there. She wakes up at the end of that. So season 2 really is coping with the fact that he's got everything that he wants now. His wife's alive, everything should be normal, but it all just starts falling apart again.
Gosh, excellent. That's the kind of
Can I
thing we
ask
like.
one more question quickly, Laura.
Yeah.
In real life, does anyone, when they see you, sort of ask you, why did you do that in a film? When you play like the bad guy? Because I saw a few years ago when I was starstruck, Walder Frey of Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah?
He's a Villa fan. And I saw him at an event, and I said to him, why did you kill Rob? Why? He's like, Gabby, everyone says it to me.
I was walking down, I did an ITV 2-parter once, and at the end of the first part, it was suggested that I was responsible for someone's death. And the first one aired, I was walking down the street, a cyclist went past me and screamed, "Murderer!" as he went past, which kind of freaked me out at the time.
Oh my God.
I've got one quick question. Ali,
Yes.
did I get away with that Scottish accent in Kingsman?
Listen, absolutely brilliant.
Do you think?
Yeah, I will be brutally honest and tell you, because it's as common as the accent is. We, as you know, are quite a critical race up here north of the border, and there's so many different accents within it, and not everybody gets it right, without naming names. But no, excellent.
Okay.
Really,
because
really
Mark
good.
Miller, Mark Miller, who's a Glaswegian who wrote the comics, the original comics it was
absolutely.
based on. I've never known whether he was taking the piss or not, or whether he was actually. But he said
We
to
do
me,
that as well.
He said to me, I don't know how you've done it, Mark, but you've nailed North East Fife.
Absolutely. That's my point.
I think he was having a laugh.
No, absolutely, Mark. It's amazing. We talk about different accents within the country. Scotland is if it's not unique, it's bizarre, because you can travel 12 miles and you've got a completely different accent, whether it's in Fife, the borders, Glasgow, down south, up north. I mean, you can go further up north and it's just a completely different language entirely. But listen, I want to ask you, not enough time, so many questions, mate. I've been doing a little bit of homework and I hope I'm right here. Early on in your life, you actually did you sing in a band? Did you sing in a couple of punk rock bands? Am I right?
Yeah, I was in a punk band when I was a teenager, but that was the time.
Love that.
That was the 70s, and I remember.
Well, you're the same age as me, and that's what I wanted to ask you. Is that what you grew up listening to?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that was, at 14, punk arrived, and I was like, that's what I wanted in my life. I didn't want Kenny G saxophone solos or whatever, or whatever's in the charts at the time. A lot of disco, I seem to remember. Punk was dangerous and interesting, and it was mine.
Here.
Amazing. We'd have you on all day if we could, Mark. Thank you so much for
Thanks
this.
for having me.
Good luck
Brilliant,
with the reception for the new series. I'm sure it'll be absolutely excellent.
talkSPORT Breakfast with Laura Woods. Monday to Wednesday mornings 6 till 10. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.